What is going on, everyone? Welcome to the first of many that I'm hoping to do over the coming months before the 2022 NFL Draft. It's the first live watch. We're going to be getting into the All 22. Trying to provide you guys out there that can't get access to it or just want to watch along with us, get into some of the prospects that we're all interested in. So I thought I'd start with the man, the myth, the legend, Jordan Davis, the big nose tackle, defensive tackle out of Georgia. Obviously, as soon as I get access to the national championship, I think we're going to go back through that game specifically because of how many pro-ready prospects are on Georgia alone. I mean, you could really focus on that defense and watch a bunch of guys at once. So, really looking forward to getting into doing that. And so let's get right into it. I'm joined by my buddy, my other guy watching football. It's Michael Crawford. Mike, how are you doing, brother?
Cole Jackson, what is up?
We're back, man. We're back.
We are. I know. This has been. Well, I won't. You know me. I start to take us off the rails, so I won't do that. But just for the people that are watching, when Cole says we're back, there's a story behind that. But yeah, it's cool that we're going to be doing what we really love to do and enjoy to do, and that's talking about ball and players and player evaluation. So it's cool.
Absolutely, and we're starting with a fun prospect. I mean, this is one of those physical freaks that you just don't see come along very often. And MC is going to give us a little bit of the backstory on Davis because he always dives into their stories, and I always find it so interesting to hear about some of these guys. But some of the high level information. So Jordan Davis is a senior out of Georgia. He's from North Carolina. He went to Mallard Creek High School. There's been we'll call it age gate, I guess. So some drama around how old Jordan Davis actually is. There was a source out there saying he was 26 years old, and so obviously that's really important to talk about as a prospect because I mean we all had that conversation with Hayden Hurst when he was drafted by the Ravens back in 2018, but. Davis tweeted about it a couple months ago. He confirmed he was born in the year 2000. He is from the 2018 high school graduate class. So for him to be 26 right now, he would have had to have been a 22-year-old high school senior. Everyone's using the bench warmers I am 12 meme. So I mean, it's kind of been it gets into a little silly season here, but I mean, he's sounds like he's 22 then. So I mean, we're dealing with a 22-year-old senior. Not a whole lot of issues there. Georgia website has him listed at 6'6", 340 pounds. I'm really interested to see how he comes into the combine and measures, especially around some of his length. I think it'll be really interesting. He finished 2021 with 17 solo tackles, 32 total tackles, 5 tackles for a loss, and 2 sacks. He was named 2021 first team All-American. Won a couple of awards, including the Outland Trophy. So he comes well decorated. And Mike's going to dive into a little bit of the backstory before we get into the film.
Yeah, and the background. I mean, you could do a show, a podcast just on that alone. So I'll try not to go too deep with that. But the age thing is funny on many levels. But one of the articles I was reading about his background, his mom apparently has been dealing with that like almost his whole life, going back to when he was 15 playing AAU basketball. She's sitting in the stands, with the other parents or people watching the game. They don't know that he's, that's his mom. And they're just looking at this, huge dude out there on the court at 15. They're like, there's no way that kid's 15. We need to see the birth certificate. There's no way this kid's 15. And she's like, actually, I'm his mom, and I can confirm exactly when I gave birth to him. So that's been around for a long time, apparently, because I guess when you're looking at, I forget exactly what the article said he was back then at 15 in terms of height, but I think it was something like 6'3", 6'4", and probably wasn't quite 300 pounds yet then, but a big dude, like well over 250 even going back then. So always been kind of a big dude, but a bit of a reluctant football player, a journey to becoming the football player that we're going to take a look at tonight. As you mentioned, back in high school, Mallard Creek High School in North Carolina, actually transferred there his sophomore year from Hopewell High School. And before he transferred to Mallard Creek, he had never played football. He'd only played basketball and saw himself as a basketball player, even though in the article he was talking about it, he was like, I basically wasn't very good. I would run down in the paint and basically was like a nose tackle on the basketball court. Like nobody could get around me, nobody could get through me. And he ended up fouling out, he said, of a bunch of games. So he was like, I wasn't very good, but I wanted to be a basketball player. I saw myself as a basketball player. So he transfers to Mallard. His mom said, they were looking for, better academic environment. And the person who's registering him for class happens to be the football coach's wife. So she's just looking at this massive kid and asked him if he played football. And he said no. And she's like, well, you got to meet my husband. So after she signs him up for classes, takes him down to the coach's office, and the coach is like, dude, basically, you got to play ball. He's like, you never play ball? You got to play ball. He doesn't want to play. He's like, no, I'm a basketball player, coach. I'm not a football player. So his mom, sort of takes him, I guess, during, kind of that spring, summer to the, the off-season camps and stuff like that. He doesn't want to go. She's just dropping him off because she's a school teacher herself, and I think she was teaching summer school classes at that point. Just drops him off in the morning and it's like, hey, here we go, bro. And I'll be back to pick you up in the afternoon. And the coach was like, initially, he didn't even want to participate. Like he was just watching. And his mom didn't care. His mom just wanted him to get out of the house because he'd been staying in the house all summer, playing video games, hanging out with a couple of friends, and literally eating everything in the house. She was like, I'd buy groceries. He'd go through them in like 2 days. And so she was like, you just got to get out of here. And so the coach was like, hey, sometimes he would just come out there and just watch. He didn't want to do workouts. He didn't want to do anything. And then gradually he started to get more involved, come over, participate in some of the stuff. And then, it was a rough start. Even once he actually, they got into the season and he's practicing and trying to get on the field. He actually started out on the offensive line. He didn't play defense until his senior year. He was an offensive lineman. And that was part of the reason why he was kind of under recruited. He ended up being like a 3-star for a lot of services coming out of high school because there was this, is he an offensive lineman? Is he a defensive lineman? Right? People weren't really sure. But the guy who recruited him to Georgia, Coach Scott, he believed that he could play defense. He had seen him at a camp. He was at North Carolina back then. He was coaching for North Carolina, and he came to like one of their satellite camps. And he saw him, and he's like, hey, this kid doesn't really know much about how to play the game yet, like in terms of technique or anything like that. But they just saw him doing like agility drills and bag drills. And they're like, you don't see people this size move like that. Right. So he offered him. Like, right. He's like, all right, I'm offering this kid. He ends up going to Georgia. Coach Scott ends up leaving and getting a job at Georgia. And so he continues to recruit him there. And like he comes on campus, and even he said Kirby Smart had like second thoughts because he saw the videos of the bag drills and stuff from the camp. And he's like, okay, yeah, we got something to work with here. And then he sees him like, in early workouts there. And he's like, are we sure about this? Are we sure this is going to work? Because he's just that raw. Right. And there's all, look, like I said, I can go on and on, but there's all of these stories about how he didn't even really like working out. He didn't like lifting weights. He'd actually go hide in the bathroom stalls because he didn't want to lift weights. And then, just was a very, very reluctant journey to football. But once, he finally kind of started to embrace that, hey, he could be good. Because it was one of those things where it was like the way he looked, everybody said, you got to play football. He didn't want to play football, but just because of his body and his size and everything, we were like, got to play football. And so there was that disconnect between his desire to do it versus what people just said, well, you should do it because look at you, right? And so obviously that can be problematic if you don't have the desire or the drive to do something. You're just doing it because everybody thinks you should do it. But it started to click at Georgia because some of the upperclassmen, defensive linemen, basically took him under his wing because they saw, obviously everybody saw the talent and potential, and they said, hey man, we just gotta figure out a way to get you to embrace this thing. You're too talented not to like give this your best shot. And eventually he kind of accepted that and embraced that. And then we've seen the development. So you think about somebody coming from that background to what you see now, it just really speaks to the importance of development and having people in your life who believe in you and believe in something that you don't even see in yourself yet. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah, no, and I think that's important because, I'm sure we're going to talk about this a lot. Given just the journey he's gone through, how he's kind of raw as a football player, given his athleticism, like I said, he's a physical freak. Not many people that big move like that. This is a guy that still has a ceiling to reach as a football player. And I think that's really important when we're talking about developing draft picks. So, all that's going to play in as we kind of go through some of his traits and what we're seeing. And, especially like there's some reps where I've seen he just gets out of control. And, it's something where, once you harness his athletic ability at his size, like this guy, I think he's going to be a very good football player, and we're going to get into all that. But I just want to take a quick second to acknowledge the fact that this almost sounds like the Michael Orr story from The Blind Side. It's like they're trying to force this kid to play football. And anyway, it's kind of funny when you're going through it because I just got shades of Sandra Bullock in my it's kind of how I feel. I'm walking down the street, up here in Ottawa, and everyone's calling me Mark Andrews, telling me to get on the football field. So, I can sympathize with them. They're like, you got to get out there, you got to play. But let's get right into the film. We're going to start with
real quick to put that ceiling, potential ceiling in context. So think about this for everybody that's watching. So when he was in high school, that Mallard Creek team, they actually won the state title in 2015. And he had a couple guys on the O-line who ended up playing D1 ball with him. So, like, really good O-line. There was, like, 3 guys that all ended up playing D1 ball. One of those guys was this kid named Eric Douglas, who went on to play at South Carolina. I think it's still there now. Either he graduates this year or maybe he might have one of those super senior deals or something like that. But anyway, so for context, comparison, Eric Douglas started playing football when he was 8. So he's been playing football for 14 years. And Jordan Davis has been playing for like 6 or 7. So just think about that in terms of the room for growth that's still, sort of out there for Jordan Davis.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to start with the Clemson game. So this was week 1 of the season. Let me just pause it here. I want to give a little bit of an overview because the Clemson game needs a little bit of contextual details. I think the biggest thing is the competition on the offensive line. So in this game, he finished with 2 solo tackles, 1 assisted tackle, 2 tackles for a loss, a sack, and a QB hit. So this is all of his snaps from that game and only his snaps, which is something that I think we're all going to hear get talked about with Davis as a player. He's not a full-time player. He's going to come off the field some. There's going to be discussions about his conditioning level. And anyway, we're going to get into some of that, but luckily we have a cut up here of just Davis's snaps, so we're going to get to see all that. His competition on the interior offensive line from Clemson is actually a really interesting thing because the left guard, number 74, Marcus Tate, is a true freshman, and in this game he became only the 3rd true freshman offensive lineman since 1973 to start a season open for Clemson. So obviously that's important for a number of reasons. Like, he's playing a very green guy. He lines up on the left guard quite a bit in this game. So, it is important to consider the competition level. So it's just a contextual note as we go through this. The center is number 65, Matt Bockhorst, who's actually a graduate senior. So he's one of those super seniors. Actually had a really good year before he tore his ACL against Pitt towards the end of the Clemson season. And then the right guard, number 56, is Will Putnam, who's a junior. So, he's kind of got 2 more experienced guys at center and right guard, but then you're going to see in this as we go through the clips, he takes advantage of some of that greenness of the left guard. So, let's get right into it. We're just going to roll clips, discuss it as we go. If you guys have any questions, you guys want to flag anything, put it in the comments in the chat, and we'll try and go back and watch anything. So there's one that's going to go to the right side. He's going to get not much movement here against that double team. So 71-74 going to deuce block him. Linebacker comes in, gets walked a couple yards off. Not a whole lot there. I think this is one where we could take a little bit of a closer look. And so he's going to get shade over top of 74 right here as kind of a 2-eye. So that's where I've had a little bit of an issue with him. He's 6'6", right? So he's just a big boy. He's going to play a little high sometimes. And, this isn't a long rep ball comes out, but you can see how high he comes out on top of this on top of 74 shoulder pads. And then, this is what's going to happen when you're dealing with that kind of leverage is you're just going to get a little bit out of control. He takes a shot from someone else. So he's just high and he kind of loses his balance. So that's something that I've noticed from his tape a few times that I think is something he can work on. And this one's a good snap because it's right on the goal line. And I think he uses a really nice bull rush here that we can get a good look at some of the power he has.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he's just walking him right back into the quarterback's lap. So again, this is against that left guard. So
I think you'll see even on this one, his pad level's a little bit better, at least, in terms of his initial get off.
Yeah,
it comes out a little bit lower. That that pad level thing is interesting because, like you said, taller guys, that's always going to be a bit of a challenge for them. Just physics, right? Just biomechanics.
Yeah. So I never had that problem at 5'8", that's for sure. But I think you can kind of see him here. Watch his hand placement get under the chest plate of 74, and that's what he kind of takes advantage of the leverage, and then he just drives it through him. So we'll try.
And we saw that. I was going to say it's a different position because Davis obviously is playing on the inside. But I was going to talk about Dafe Owe, who plays more on the outside. But again, guys who haven't played a ton of football for like a really long time and have those basketball backgrounds in particular, it's a different movement pattern in basketball. You think about just the way guys' bodies are positioned more often throughout the course of a basketball game. Not saying that they don't bend, obviously they do, but they play more upright, throughout the course of a basketball game than you do in football. I mean, football is all about bend, right? And sinking your hips and lowering your center of gravity. And so I think it just, people could say, well, look, he's been at Georgia, for 4 years. What are we talking about? I think it's just a constant thing for guys who are that tall. And again, for somebody who's really only been playing, football for 6 years, to just, keep working on that and kind of be conscientious about it all the time so that you get to the point where you're not thinking about it, right? You're just kind of playing that way because you've ingrained it. You've done it so many times. So, I mean, I think that's something that can be improved because you see snaps like that previous one, and we might see other ones where you see he can bend, right? You can see the ability in his hips to bend.
Yeah, and that's one of those things where it's not necessarily a lack of ability to do, but it is lack of ability to do it consistently. And I'm going to get into this. I think it happens more in the middle set of snaps, but just to preface it, because I'm going to refer to it probably a few times, is his first step explosiveness suffers from that too. It's just like I've been doing the pause thing where you can kind of see everyone else is already out of their stance and he hasn't taken that first step yet. So it's just little consistent things, but not necessarily lack of ability.
See how he can just jack dudes up.
Yeah, if he gets under those pads, like he moves you. 74 ain't going nowhere there.
I mean, just the knockback on that, it's just violent.
That looked like a hole.
See him get off a little bit.
Yeah, that showed good first. So let's kind of go slow through this. See, he just walks right through 65's face.
Yeah. And I was going to ask you, because you've seen a little bit more than me on that first step quickness point. Do you think with him, and I guess if it was just this, then it could have, you probably would see it with other guys on the D line too, but it doesn't sound like you were seeing it as much. I was going to ask, or I am asking, I'm wondering, is it maybe a scheme related thing? Like, what is he keen? Is he kind of in a more of a read and react posture, or on like that last play where you can tell, they're clearly running some kind of line game. So he's just going, right? He's crossing face and he's getting to another gap. He doesn't have to read anything on that particular game because he's the first man through. So he can just go. And then you see, without having, to read or process anything, you saw the quickness. You saw the first step quickness. Like, all right, let him just look at him go. And I'm wondering on some of that other stuff, is he reading something? Is that something that you've noticed in their scheme that maybe they're asking him to do?
I think one big thing is they do, and I remember this from watching 2 draft classes ago, guys like Neville Gallimore and who's the cat out of TCU? He was another just Blacklock that went to Houston. He had quite a few snaps where it almost looked like he wasn't doing anything on a pass rush snap, but it was because they were just running so many twists. And so you will see some snaps, and we'll actually see them in this Clemson game where he's just twisting, right? So he's being delayed on purpose. And so, you got to go back and look for those little things. But mostly on some of the pass rush snaps that he's had, that's why I was doing the pause thing, just trying to see where the other D line's feet. And we'll try and do it later when we get to those snaps. I kind of have them marked on here, but it looks like it's a little bit of both. Is kind of my answer from what I've seen. I've mostly watched this Clemson game in depth, not so much the Alabama game we're going to watch next, but it's kind of a mixture of both. He's doing a pass rush game, but it also just looks like he's coming off the ball slow. So whether or not he's not reacting to the ball being snapped well, he's reading something else. Maybe he's tired. That stuff's going to come up, and I don't know if he is. I know James sent us a message about it. Our friend James Ogden at NFL Ogden, because he's already watched him, and there's definitely going to be times where a dude that big is in a hurry up. Obviously, he's going to get a little bit more tired, but something to keep an eye on. It's a bit of a non-snap for him.
Yeah. And that's something that was mentioned in the background article too by different people, whether it was his high school coach or even Kirby Smart, that said, really monitoring his weight and staying on top of his conditioning. Has been a challenge at various points. Kirby talked about that when he first got on campus at Georgia. He just said he was out of shape. He was overweight and he was out of shape. So, it's something he's worked at, and he's talked about it himself. He actually talked about it in the pressers leading up to the national championship games. They were asking him about the first Alabama game, and he was saying, about him critiquing his own play specifically, that, hey, my conditioning needed to be better.
Right.
I didn't put in the kind of work I needed to going into that week. And so he said, going into the Natty, they were like hyper focused. He was hyper focused on that. He said, I'm actually going, it was funny, the quote, he's like, I'm actually going to run after this presser right now. So
he's getting his Wheaties into him every morning. Actually, I got to acknowledge in the comments, Dan Reese made a great point. Imagine him getting a season with Campbell, 6'8", another guy that's got to deal with that pad level bend consistently. That's something to think about. Here's actually interesting. So they're going to throw a screen here to the quarterback's left. But it looks like Davis gets into a little bit of a dip here on a pass rush move. I'm trying to get that inside shoulder low. That's a big boy trying to get low. He tries to go right up somebody for inside shoulder. So something to keep an eye on when we're looking for hand counters and pass rush repertoire.
Is the video getting a little blurry on your end?
It isn't. Is it on yours? Because I was worried about. Okay.
That could just be me. I don't know if anybody else who's watching live mentions that to you. It might just be on my end. Slow internet.
There, so he's going to get a little bit of something here. Oh no, he was on the other side.
It's like a little contained rush.
Yeah, that was a little bit of a slant. Yelling rip, rip, rip. So you came out late there.
Yeah. Now watch this play. If this is what I think. I've seen Clemson do this over the years. Watch their O-line. You see how they all turn and stop? They run that play. I've seen them run that play throughout the years. It's a draw. It's like a delay kind of play. But you see how they all just like turn and face one side and just stop? And it causes hesitation with, at least with Davis. I don't know about the other guys.
See, he gets inside. He's got a wide base there.
So like, what's going on here?
But look at his feet. This is a great snap to kind of highlight one of those technical things that I've noticed from him is his body just gets a little bit sloppy. So, you don't want to get guys crossing feet. He's there, he gets hit. It's just like, but it's amazing that he's that big and he's able to move that laterally. Like, I know it's only a couple of steps, but he does get flying. Flying relative to his size. There, it looks like he eats a couple blocks here. Right over the nose here.
Coming from the left guard.
Oh, he gets pushed right out.
Yeah, that down block movement, you can see they get him on the hip and they just over a gap.
There, you hit him with a nice little snatch on that one.
But I wonder, we didn't see it there, and I wonder if we'll see it on other snaps where he's getting comboed. Does he ever use that technique where you kind of drop that knee, kind of corkscrew that knee in to try to hold up the post man and let the drive man come off you and climb to wherever he's going to climb to? And then, you're able to kind of take that post man, now you're one-on-one and kind of do what you want to with him. Or if he always just kind of, just played it straight up, for a lack of a better way of describing it. Like he's not trying to drill that knee down into the ground. He's like, hey, I'm just going to try to play this thing straight up. And then he's just getting bounced over a gap.
Yeah.
Because I'm not saying that's the only way to play a combo. You don't have to do that drop the knee thing. I mean, there's other ways to do it, but
I like this little pass rush move.
Yeah, a little snatch.
It's one thing with someone his size, like he must have a nasty push pull.
Yeah. Well, especially when he, like you said, he gets his hands under your pads and he strikes you. He's going to put you back, and you're going to try to anchor or resist that, and then he's going to snatch you.
Did you see this? Look, this is that left guard. He's just going to push him right off of him. Nope, you go over there.
Yeah.
See, that's one of those things when he sticks with that wide base and he gets his hands on, he's able to really, like, if it's one-on-one, it's going to be tough to drive block him, right? So I think if he can get a little bit more consistent with dropping that anchor, because his functional strength is a high level. That's one right there where he comes off slow. I think, we're getting into these middle clips where I kind of mark that. So this is what I mean. So, this is just straight up rush. So I don't think there's any sort of pass rush game going on here. I think he just comes off slow. Dan's probably laughing right now because I don't have a mouse. I'm using my scroll pad on my Mac. So here, I'll show you guys what I mean. See, if I do that, see, it ends up.
Yeah.
They're all up, right? He's about a step behind compared to the rest of the line. It's just like, again, it's not. We saw it on a previous snap, so I'm not saying he has no explosiveness out of his first step. He absolutely can. He just needs to consistently apply it, and I think that's kind of the takeaway.
And see, that's what makes me wonder, what is he keying? Like, is he keying the ball? Is he keying the man? Does he have a consistent key, or is he getting undisciplined with his eyes? Like, on one play, I'm keying one thing, another play, I'm keying another. I mean, you're going to have different keys on different plays based on what you think is happening in the formation and all of that. But I'm just wondering if, maybe it's an eye thing. Everything starts with your eyes.
See, even right there, he said, that one wasn't as bad. I'm going to get nitpicky about this. Spencer, I know you're out there watching, rolling your eyes at me. So,
yeah, I think if you see it, and you obviously you mentioned you see it multiple times in this game. If you see it over multiple games, then I think it's something you gotta really kind of ask and dig into and try to see. Okay, well, why is this happening? I see it happening, but what could be causing it?
He wrecks this play. What's interesting is a couple of these plays that we've stopped to take a look at as a highlight, they're mostly coming when he's lined up over the center, not so much over top of the guards, because just based on he's getting all the double teams pretty much. Like any sort of combo block coming from Clemson is coming at him. But when he's able to kind of get one-on-one head up with the center, and I mean, I think he's mostly going to be projected as more of a nose versus kind of a 2-3 tech at the next level. I think he's going to be able to slide around a little bit, but like he wrecks this play right here. He's lined up over the center. He takes on the guard. Gets the hand counter out. Yeah, like that's high level play, right?
Yep. I mean, he controlled that entire rep. Like, he was controlling the block.
I think he even comes out a little slow here. 4-man rush. It's a screen, so ball's coming out quick, but not slow. Nice play by 95.
Just knocking it down.
Over top of the center again.
There you go. Gets off the ball a little bit.
Yeah.
I got a little.
It wasn't for the play, but he beats that. I like how he beat that wide zone there. Wide zone blocking scheme anyway, even though the ball went the other way. Yeah, this is just
again.
that's nasty.
He's going to
Like,
be hard
this
to
is
cut off. Yeah, he's going to be hard to cut off. That's going to be a problem.
see, he shifts. See him make that shift right before. Oh my god!
See, when he was more head up, then that guard's probably like right there. That guard's got a better chance to get that block and reach him and cut him off. But once he slides over, like it's going to be hard to.
But look at him moving. Like he's out before.
Yeah,
74's got no chance. He beats. They got two pullers.
Yeah. So we see plays where he gets off the ball, and I'm wondering the ones that we've seen so far where he gets off, they've been run plays. So I wonder if he diagnoses runs better than passes right now. I don't know.
It makes you wonder what was he thinking when he shifted? Like, is that just something he does normally? One of those things where you got to watch more film of what his tendencies are in the scheme,
in the formation, and he's like, "Hey, I think I know what's coming."
He just shifted there. That's a run.
Yeah, and they were trying to cut him off. They might have got more of a piece of him there. Let's see. I think the left guard's going to try to come and get him. Yeah,
it's just a big jam up there. Gets down the line of scrimmage really quick there, though. Nice pursuit down the line.
That basketball movement.
See there, he just ran this looks like one of those delayed stunts, right? He's going to twist around the edge. That's got to be purpose, right? Like he's not just docilely going into the edge there.
Yeah, I think so. Okay. And the thing with those is, it can be hard unless you know a lot about the scheme. It can be hard to know whether that's a called stunt or if they're given the freedom to read out certain plays and like, all right, hey, based on how the blocks unfold, I'm going to go in, you go out. Ravens, Dean Pease talked about that once. I remember at a clinic, he was showing some clips of like Sizzle and other guys. He's like, people think those are called stunts. They're not. He's like, we just give them the green light to read it out. Him and Haloti, and they're like, they just see it. And they know the game so well, they study so well. They're like, all right, I'm going to go in, you go out. They'll talk about it before the play, So, is that happening in college? I don't know. Probably, it depends on the players and the scheme. But
I mean, Georgia high level defense, they got a bunch of pro ready guys, right? So, he's going to twist left here. It must be something with he's lined up over top of the left guard almost every snap in this game so far. Or the center, but to the left. So they must play left tackle, left DT, right DT sort of setup here. He gets upfield quick there. I just find when he loses that pad level, he's too easy to kind of knock off balance. So that's something I think that's something that he's gonna have to really work on, is just teaching that. There he gets stunted by the double team.
And that's a universal thing in line play, both sides of the line.
Like they're just sending that was a double right off the snap. They just set him with the squeeze.
Yeah, that's where I'd be going. But the thing is, they got other dudes on the line too, so it's tough.
See, there's that. This will be a good example of how he gets off the line when he wants to. Right there over top of the left guard again. Like he just jacks him whenever he wants to.
Yeah.
If he gets that one-on-one setup.
Yeah. So like you said, it looks like a consistency issue. Just if you're gonna be on, let's be on all the time.
This one, I think he shows a nice little hand power here. He just jacks center right back.
Yeah. You can see that when you watch him on those plays when he does that. You can so clearly see like that 3-point explosion drill, like where you're not moving your feet, you're just coming out of your stance, coming out of your hips and striking a sled or striking a pad. It looks exactly like what he's doing.
Yeah. His pad level's good on this one. This is a great rep where he's got nice, consistent low pad level.
Yeah, when he does that, it's just skates.
Yeah.
The guy's on ice.
Oh, look at him turn the edge there. I think that was him that got that sack. Looked like it. I don't know if he looking like Oweh on that play.
Kirby Smart said about him. Kirby Smart said, people make such a big deal about his low snap count and he only plays on first and second down. He's like, he can be a 3-down player. It's just not something that we've really asked him to do a whole lot of.
There's another play coming. All of his best plays have come from a 0-1 shade where he's lined up on that center. And there's another one where he just gets his hands off him.
Yeah, and you can see why schematically, like why you would do that, right? Because you line him up there. If you leave him one-on-one with the center, he's going to win. So you're forcing them to give help from either guard. Like it's got to come from one side, and then that's going to free up somebody else.
Exactly, and that's kind of we'll probably get into that a little bit at the end. But in terms of how he could possibly fit with the Ravens, I think that's one of the key points.
Yeah, he's going to let somebody else get a one-on-one, and then it's just up to them to win.
See, this is one where he looked a little, I don't know what the timestamp is here, but he just comes off the ball slow. He's a little sluggish.
Yeah, and that's a good point about time. I want to go back and I probably want to check that too. What point in the game are we at? Is this in a series? Has he been on for like 4, 5, 6 plays in a row? Stuff like that.
That was actually his last snap of that game.
Okay.
I think they ended
up towards the end.
Yeah. Just gonna check some of the comments. Why does this look like 144p? Yeah, I think I'm seeing on my internet bar. Some of it's not. I'm just got to roll with it. We'll try and keep the quality up as much.
I wasn't sure if it was just on my end because I know I got.
No, Spencer messaged me and said some of it's getting blurry. Not much I can do. Canadian internet. Good question from Dan. I don't know if you want to watch the Bama game before we discuss this. The question is, does it concern you using a first-round pick on a primarily 2-down player? And I think that's one of it's a good question. I think with some of the stuff I've seen from Davis, I don't think I would limit him to just a 2 first and second down player. I think he has some of the athletic traits. He's got powerful hands. He's already shown me in one game where he can use some hand counters. It may not be consistent, but he's shown me enough where I don't see why he can't be a pass rusher from the inside. Even if you got a guy, like you said, if you got a guy getting double teamed all the time, I mean, if you have a 4-man rush and your nose tackle pass rusher is getting doubled all the time, you got 3 one-on-ones elsewhere if it's a 5-man protection, right? So it's not necessary. I think that's always been like a big nose tackle can be used effectively on a 4-man pass rush, right? Like that's kind of how I've always viewed it.
Yeah, and it's a good philosophical question, and when you look at kind of the way the NFL is, today, I think most people, if you just ask them that question in a vacuum, not even talking about Jordan Davis specifically, most people are probably going to say, no, I don't want to use a first-round pick on a guy who's going to primarily play on first down and second down. So there's the first part of it, which you answered, which is we don't necessarily know that he's limited to that. He wasn't, maybe asked to play as much on third down at Georgia. And he talked about that in the article, one of the articles that I was reading. He's like, look, they got guys like Jalen Carter and other guys here who, younger guys who behind me, who they want to get on the field too. And so he said sometimes it just becomes like a rotational thing. But, I told you Kirby Smart and even the Coach Scott, the guy who recruited him, said, hey, he's got 3-down ability, but – and this is like an old, there's all kinds of coaching axioms out there. This is an old one, like the best third down defense is a first down defense. And so they talk about what he does on first down. So for the numbers folks out there, I won't pretend that I'm a great numbers guy. Our friend at Yoshi 2052 can attest to that. But they talked about in this article how no team in the country had a higher rate of successful first down plays than Georgia, like on defense, 73.4%. And no team had a higher defensive EPA added on second and long, which I think was like 33.02. So basically, he's helping them win on first and second down so that teams are now being forced into either second and long or third and long. And so maybe he wasn't on the field in that third and long situation. Well, he'd already done his job to get them into that third and long situation. So it just kind of depends, I guess, on your defensive philosophy and sort of your positional value philosophy.
Yeah, and I think when you think about Wink's defense and, some of his ability to send pressure, from multiple angles. Really hard to double team a guy when you're trying to adjust to that blitz, right? So something definitely to think about. I know that's one of the things with Brandon Williams. He never really developed to become a significant contributor as a pass rusher, and that always kind of frustrated people when he got his contract. But he was never really, even when he was paid, I don't think he was paid with the expectation that he was going to come in and be that kind of pass rusher, right? So it's not only your defensive philosophy, it's also kind of the role you envision for that guy. But when it comes to Jordan Davis, I could see how I could scheme him in a pass rush, especially a 4-man pass rush. I think he actually really helps me. I think he creates one-on-ones elsewhere, because even at the NFL level, it's going to be hard to block this guy with just with his, even if he just stayed primarily a bull rush or power rusher. He never really developed a wide array of pass rush moves. He's going to be hard to kind of slow down just based on his athletic profile and his potential to build that up. So that someone in the chat made a good point. They rotated D linemen a lot. They have a lot of high talent guys. So I think that factored in as well. I'm not sure his athletic profile or his player profile, his player evaluation shows me that he's just a first and second round player so far, And we'll jump into the Alabama game. Before we do that, context on Alabama's O-line. So they obviously replaced 2 big draft picks in Landon Dickerson and Deontay Brown, 2 guys that I really liked on that squad with Javion Cohen and Seth McLaughlin. So it'll be interesting in this one to see if he lines up over top of the left guard a lot. That's Javion Cohen, the guy that replaced Deontay Brown. And then the right guard, number 55, is a redshirt junior. He's one of only 2 returning starters on this Alabama line. Obviously, the other one's Evan Neal, who played right tackle last year, while Leatherwood played left tackle. So we'll jump into this one.
And so you and I, just closing the loop on that third down ability thing, you and I talked about this the other day. That's the other part of player evaluation is the projection part of it, right? There's the first part of explaining what you see, right? What the player is right now, but you're trying to project what you think it can be, right? And so sometimes you have to extrapolate, and you're looking at these pass rush snaps, whether they were on third down or whatever the situation was. If it's an obvious passing situation, you're trying to maybe pull things out of those snaps and say, okay, look, he's got this pass rush ability, right? He can do this, he can do that, he wins this way, he wins that way. Now, can I project that to having him play a little bit more on third downs, or am I going to have a package where he's in on third down and put him in those situations where the ways that I saw he could win and be successful, I try to put him in those situations. So that's the really, part like you and I talked about that separates the good evaluators from like the really special evaluators is the one that can make those projections and explain why, and then obviously end up being right. I'm not that. I'll just say that I'm not good at the projection part. It's something that I try to work on and something that I think about. I'm much more comfortable with okay, here's what I see, here's what he is, but I don't know how much value there is in only being able to do that.
Yeah, and I think that's really important when you're doing that projection. Like, you really need to consider the environment he's going to now be playing in, right? Like, it's you have to project him in how Wink Martindale, as whether he stays or not, whatever, within that scheme that he runs, what he asks of his noses, or some of those 2-tech snaps that he might see. What's he going to do, and what can he kind of project out in that role as a potential Baltimore Ravens draft pick?
It's like buying a house, right? You go out and buy a house, maybe it's a little bit of a fixer-upper. You got to be able to see what it can be.
Exactly. That's why I bought brand new, because you don't want me using hammers and drills. Took me 3 months to build this office.
I was gonna say, don't tell that lie. Well, you got the proof.
Yeah, it's an 11x8 office. It took me 3 months.
First project, got to get your reps in.
Exactly. Start off with a nice little screen pass here. Not a whole lot there. He's over top of the left guard, though.
Yeah. Man,
that Bama line shot off quick, though.
Yeah, those boys.
Wow. Yeah, I think. I mean, I'm sure the numbers are out there. PFF hasn't updated their draft guide with 2021 stuff. PFF draft guide, highly recommended. It shows a lot of alignment stuff. So where he lined up on the defensive line. And for their NFL stuff, they show specific gap alignment. Last year in the draft guide, it was less specific, where they just had over the tackle, A gap, B gap, edge, that sort of thing. But it will help for seeing his nose snaps versus defensive tackle, two tech type snaps. But it seems like in this scheme, he's lining up at right defensive tackle most of the time, just for context. He gets good out there.
We know, even with the change on that Alabama O-line, with them losing 2 guys to the draft and new guys coming in, those guys obviously have talent. That's the kinds of guys they get at Alabama. But we also know they're coached up well. Doug Marrone was their offensive line coach.
He's down there trying to revive that NFL career.
Billy O'Brien, all those guys.
This is an interesting one. Left guard's going to quick set him. He's going to hit him with a swim, and left guard does that knowing center's there to help him. Center goes face up on him, so it looks like double team right off the bat. But nice swim to get over top of the left guard. I mean, he just kind of took advantage of that quick set. But
nice plan by Alabama.
Oh, man, he gets down the line quick there. This is something that I heard a few people say, how he gets against wide zone, outside zone. He gets down the line pretty quick and stays pretty square. This is a good rep to show it.
Yeah, got his gap and pursues to the ball. And I think that's where you see that basketball ability, that kind of being able to slide and laterally shuffle. I think that's where you see.
I want to look at that one more time. I mean, he doesn't make the play on the ball, but he's also coming from over top. He's inside the guard.
Yeah. So watch him secure his gap first. Got his A gap.
Yeah.
And he pursues to the ball. I mean, that's doing his job.
Yeah. Shows good athleticism, good lateral movement. Oh. See, when he plays with that ability to keep the line, like the guard's hands off of him,
it's like another little line movement play. That's what I'm saying. When they've got those games, whether that's cold or whatever, and he can just go, you can see the quickness and the explosion.
He actually came off slow there, but good recovery. He's got quick feet. I'm noticing that we're only about 5 snaps into this. He's playing much more square to the line of scrimmage in this game. And, that Clemson game was the first game of the year. This is the SEC championship. So, he's had 10 games in between. And that's something that's standing out to me right away. It looks a lot more controlled in terms of staying square. I found he got, turning a little bit too much. And that's what was kind of raising that pad level. He was losing his base. And that kind of is where he starts to lose his balance. So that's standing out to me right away.
And that's a good
he's
point.
Low there. He's low
about game selection in terms of the games that you watch.
Yeah. I wish I said that was on purpose, but it wasn't. I just wanted to see Alabama.
guys can and do improve over the course of a season.
Yeah. Well, anytime we're talking about a guy like him where he's raw and newer to the game, even 1 year can be a big difference maker in terms of the type of player he is. See, like right there, like that.
Just easy money.
Yeah. Snatch his lunch money.
Easy money.
Over top of the center. Vicious hands. Like he's.
Yeah. That's knockback.
Oh my God.
Yeah. People say, you hear that.
Oh, like Gino Gradkowski.
People hear that term and they say, I hear people using knockback all the time. What does that look like? You just saw it.
You just saw it, definitely. See, even the way he gets off there to pursue outside of the pocket, like that's good lateral quickness. A little high, but. Yeah.
Bryce Young, who they called the gingerbread man. That was
There's another. Look at that. Oh, man, when he shoots gaps.
Yeah, so again, another line movement play. Tell me, when it's a called game, called stunt, whatever you want to term it, and he can just go, no hesitation.
Okay, so let me ask you that, because you know this stuff better than I. So do you think that would mean he'd be a better fit for one gap or two gap then? One gap, right?
Yeah, I mean, certainly those are more, one gap type of plays, and you're changing the gaps, right? So you come out in one alignment, and we could go back. I don't remember exactly where he started out, but basically, let's say you come out and your pre-snap alignment is like a three technique, and then with your movement, you end up being a no shape, right?
Right.
So this is kind of like what we were talking about before. Again, I don't want to derail us, but the whole 4-3-3-4 conversation.
Yeah, yeah.
So he can start out there looking like a three technique, and then with he slants inside, and you watch the other guys, they all move too. So you can go from what looks like a four down spacing and get to three down spacing just with line movement. From pre-snap alignment to post-snap movement. So there's all different kinds of ways that you can do that, but that's a whole separate conversation.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, it's one of those things where I think, I mean, I'm only probably using this comparison because he's a recent draft pick by the Ravens. But in terms of some of those athletic tools, and in terms of some of those unteachables, it's going to be a situation like Owe, where you can't teach this athleticism at this size, right? He may need to become a better football player in terms of consistent application of technique, getting his hands up more, that sort of thing. But that's all stuff that's going to come with just playing more football and better coaching and more coaching and that sort of thing. But in terms of going from what we're seeing right now to what is that projection as a player, high level player, when he's allowed to, it looks like he has a pretty high level play speed. It's not just going to be a big dude that tests well, right? Relative to his size, it looks like this is showing on tape when he's able to kind of put everything together, like high level athlete.
Yeah, and that's what you're looking for. That's what the draft is all about, right? It's about traits, and you're trying to assess traits and identify traits. Obviously, you want good football players. Nobody's saying that's not that's not the case. And you want to see experience, you want to see production, technique, all of that. But it has to start with athletic traits, because that's what these coaches are paid to develop, right? You got these guys in the NFL, you got huge staffs of coaches, within a position group. One guy's coaching outside linebackers, inside linebackers, interior D line, DN. You got all these coaches. That's what you're there to do, is to develop these guys.
Yeah. Spencer made a good point. It said right there, never misses a tackle. It's kind of true. I haven't seen him miss one yet. Like when he gets his sights set on someone, he's got good technique at the wrap up point. I mean, it's a guy where he's only had 30 tackles over the whole season, but it looks like when he gets into those situations where he's making a tackle, he's got pretty clean technique to wrap up and take a guy down. This is one of those ones. So he's going to start here to 2I. And he's going to exchange all the way out to the outside. And this is where I find on some of these where he's doing those wide rotations, he just looks lackadaisical, right? Like, and he's out there, and that's, I'm not sure that's his game, right? Like, I know that's part of their scheme, but it just doesn't look like that's his game.
Yeah, so that's what I was going to say, and not to take anything away from that point, because I think you're right. No matter what you're doing out there, you don't want to look lackadaisical doing it. But sometimes when you're that wide looper, you're an interior guy, right? A bigger body type, and they're having you loop out wide. You're a contained rusher, right? You're out there just trying to keep contained to that side, not let anything get outside of you. And so sometimes guys kind of go out there a little bit nonchalant.
I think it just speaks to kind of, if we're trying to look at what his role can be, when he's put in those situations to get upfield and attack, it seems to be where I find he's using that first step explosiveness and all that kind of stuff. He's using it more consistently in those scenarios. Whereas it looks a little bit slower, kind of coming off the ball when he's kind of doing those loops and whatnot.
Yeah. Yeah, you definitely want him moving vertically as much as possible.
Yeah. Good play strength there to hold up against the combo.
And see, that's one of the things we wanted to see. That we wanted to see. Okay, how does he take them on in different situations? Does he do it all the same way every time, or is he using a different technique?
So he's gonna get banged by the center. There, he squeezed.
I can't see if he drops that knee from that angle, would probably be from the other angle, but I don't think he did.
Maybe we can tell from end zone. I don't think we can, but we can try. Went back too far.
He definitely played that one better though than some of the other ones that we saw. Let's see. No, he just kind of destroys the
guard.
Yeah.
Just kind of throws him on his ass. Yep,
Yeah,
get out of here.
get out of here. Yeah.
But that's good.
Oh, no.
That's
Oh,
how you maintain your gap against that zone, right?
Yeah. I couldn't tell if he tripped or something though in the guard.
He could have tripped.
That's always the first thing to look for, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Go down on the line. Oh, did he trip? Because you immediately want to get excited and be like, this guy got destroyed. And sometimes you're like, oh, he tripped. So there, he was it was almost like a spy kind of thing. Like he's not even really trying to rush. He's just like, all right, let me keep this guy. And they talked about that, about on certain plays with Bryce Young, where it was more of a tempo rush, a contained rush. We just want to keep him in the pocket and not let him out.
Yeah, and I mean, we see that type of low gear stuff on the D line all the time against Lamar, like all the time. It was one of my biggest extra criticisms to our pass protection, because I mean, sometimes you'll see snaps where you got guys on the high gear side losing, but on the low gear side, they're going low gear. So those guys aren't even, you're still losing as a unit, right? So, I mean, we see that all the time from rushers where they're playing more contain against Lamar. Bit of a nothing burger.
Yeah, was that fourth quarter? What did that say up there?
Yeah, let me go back.
I didn't see where they were.
Second.
Oh, second. Okay, so I'm thinking.
I'm about halfway through the clip, so it makes sense.
It's a little slow coming off there.
Good power. Yeah, see, on these last few, he does look a little slower. But is it because the quarter's winding down? Is it,
Yeah, how long has this drive been? How many snaps?
It seems like it's been quite a few snaps. There's 3 minutes left, or 4 minutes left in the second quarter. Actually, I want to go back. I think we kind of missed something there while I was trying to figure out the clock. See, good hands again. Get him off of him.
Yep.
Good read by the running back. Jump outside of his gap. See, he reads that and he just cuts.
Yeah. Spill the ball.
Yeah.
They got more than enough speed to chase that stuff down.
Over top of the center. It's just misdirection. Yeah,
and you can see he's not even running or even jogging in the direction of the ball. He's like, I'm shutting it down. And like I said, who knows? I don't know how many snaps he's played on this drive. Like you said, I haven't been counting, but there's been.
He flew off there. And that's why you play some of that contain against him.
Yeah.
Because that comes, he's over top of left guard. Look, he's going to slant inside.
And got out.
Neal opens that up. Nice little, yeah.
I wonder if that was 88. I wonder if he dropped. Was he dropping as like a low hole kind of guy, or was he? Because when you see the DN to Davis' side, right? They both go inside. Him and Davis both go inside. So who's got?
Was 88 supposed to twist? Well, he's in a spy, so why is he so far?
Right, so it might not be him. Yeah, I don't know if he was supposed to loop, and he's just like, oh wait, I see the ball coming out. Let me just stop and see if I can.
But even if he's in a spy should be staying square between.
Well, not spy. But what I'm saying is, if he's supposed to loop, right, and so he's got.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Yeah, and he sees the ball. He sees the quarterback's hand come off the ball. He's like, oh, he's about to throw it. And so he jumps up or whatever, and then he's, I don't know if that's what was happening.
So this is third quarter, so we're refreshed. We got we got the Gatorade orange slices ready to rock.
We're just going to get the ball out on the perimeter quickly. Jamison.
Oh, someone asked a question about that last play we just talked about. So question was, he's saying Davis was supposed to be the contain guy in the loop action, right? So no, he's talking about number 88, the guy that was a step back from the line, expecting him to contain or to do the loop over behind Davis slanted inside, and so did that play side defensive end. So 88 would kind of be the loop contain. Just to clarify,
that was just my guess. I mean, somebody was supposed to do it, and
I mean, it makes sense to me, but yeah, it's always hard to know if we don't know the play. But I mean, if you're going to slam both of your linemen on that play inside, you would expect a loop over of some sort.
Those guys are not the contain guys.
Yeah. Bama gets the ball out quick.
3rd and 1.
Didn't see him on that one. He looked good loss on the other side. He's over top of the. Oh no, he's still over top of the left guy. Yeah, he just gets banged down. But even here, I mean, not as important because he's on the backside. But what we were talking about, pad level, staying square, all that kind of stuff. Even as he gets banged from the left tackle, look how much more square he is to the line of scrimmage. So, like, even though he's not making a play on this one, what I had noticed before is once he started moving laterally, his body would turn, and that means that once the left tackle comes in and hits that bang on his backside because he's turned his body position, he's losing his balance. So I know that he doesn't make a play on the ball here, but that to me is what I was referring to when we started this game, and we're about 4 or 5 snaps in. He's showing a little bit, better, not just pad level, but better body positioning and moving down the line, staying, going laterally. See, right here is what I mean. Like,
yeah,
he hasn't turned his body. So when he gets hit with that must be Neal. When he gets hit by Neal, like he's not moving, right? He's moving with his own. He's still got all of his balance and power. So again, he doesn't make a play on the ball, but that has looked better to me so far in this game in terms of his ability to maintain a strong anchor through by staying square to the line of scrimmage.
There you go. He got a little knockback on the left guard there.
See, same exact concept that I'm talking about here is, we saw it a few times in that Clemson game where he kind of would turn his body and then he's just kind of, getting a little too wobbly once he's getting hit with that combination block. But here he's moving down the line. He takes away a cutback from the running back. That cutback lane isn't there anymore because he's working towards the play by staying square, staying strong against the block.
Yeah. Building that picket fence when you can see everybody's numbers, that's usually a good thing. Guys start turning sideways, you can't see their numbers.
Yeah.
Gonna open up a crease or a cut back. Kind of got washed up over that time.
Yeah. Quick slants. They get the ball out quick.
Solid get off.
Yeah, play action, but good get off.
Balls out.
Looks better staying square to the line of scrimmage again. Yeah, that's nice right there. Another good example of him against the run here. So again, he's on the backside. Same idea, right? He's staying square. He's working down on the backside, and he's just got that quick lateral movement. Like and
the penetration on the left guard, that was key there because getting that guy back into the backfield. Now that left tackle, he's on a different level. Yep. So he can't get to you now. He's trying to get to him and bang him. But he can't
that's that first snap right there, right? Because now it's not so much a combo block. Yeah.
Yeah, he's going behind him now because of the penetration that Davis gets on the guard.
Yeah, that's definitely something that looks night and day better from my Clemson game. Night and day. Even right there. Like, I mean, the ball goes off the edge, but it's just his ability to stay square and play with a better anchor.
lot of perimeter stuff from Alabama. Well, not there.
Yeah. Maybe that's why.
And I think that goes to the point that he was talking about conditioning in this game. They were throwing so much quick stuff on the perimeter. You get these defensive linemen, moving laterally, running left and right. Yeah, that's going to take a toll on you.
Yeah. Same idea there. Yeah, that's something I like to see. Something very specific in his technique. Again, he's on the backside. He's just hard to block one-on-one. Like, he's just too big.
Yeah, on a center too. I mean, typically they're typically the smallest guy on the O line, right? In most cases, so it's going to be a struggle.
Just ran through the left guard there. Again, quick action out, so not much of a result in terms of a pressure event, but
yeah, get your ball out to your speed and space and make corners tackle.
Yeah, they don't want any part of them up the middle.
Another little stunt.
Yeah.
Kobe Dean. That's my guy, Denard's guy, Denard Melton. He loves him some of Kobe Dean. Of course, Denard will love linebackers, especially good ones.
Athletic ones. That guy is a speed demon. So there he gets back over top of the center again. Square to the line, square to the line.
Yeah. So like you said, you might look at that on first glance and say, "Oh, look at the movement they're getting."
He's holding his gap that whole time. That's why gap responsibility is so important.
And you see the running back, he's looking for somewhere else to go, backside, because he can't go front side.
Yeah, good point from Spencer. I don't know what play that was on. Want to see him use that, dip that shoulder and use the hump move more. Yeah, no, it's that's one thing. That was the last play. That's one thing. We can give a couple of takeaways here. I'd actually like to. I mean, I wish I don't have it loaded, so we can't get into it. I'm gonna go back and watch one of the games that I have on him from the middle of the season. I'm kind of interested now to kind of see, what it looked like in the middle of the season, because that's one of my biggest takeaways between that Clemson game and that Alabama game. Drastic improvement in terms of consistent application of technique. Something that's definitely standing out. So, what do you got, MC, for takeaways? I know we only watched 2 games. I know I got to do a little bit of thinking about what we watched, but if you have anything you wanna get into.
No, I think the point you just made about the improvement, particularly that body position point, staying square and kind of moving laterally down the line, that was really noticeable from that Clemson game to the Alabama game. And then also just those plays that we saw, those line movement plays, right? And the first step quickness and the explosion. So again, that's the projection piece to me. Like, okay, those were stunts against runs. They were run stunts. But if you have that kind of movement ability, then that's probably something that can show up in a pass rush situation as well, right? If I can scheme you maybe on some kind of game or some kind of stunt in pass rush, or just have you jet a gap and just say, hey, don't worry about reading anything or looking at anything, just go jet this gap. We see that he's got the athletic ability to do it. So that kind of caught my eye a little bit, and it's like, okay, maybe I need to go and, like you said, watch a few more games and look for those specific things, like you talked about with Jordan Battle, right, in a different context, but looking for those opportunities to project traits that maybe the player doesn't get a lot of opportunity to show just because of what's happening on offense or what they're being asked to defense, but to do on defense. But can we see, kind of peek through that keyhole and see those traits and try to project them in the different situations?
Yeah, and to build off that in that Alabama game, I think one thing you could take away from a results perspective is you didn't have much pass rush activity, right? So I know that's something that people are going to talk about with him, but we mentioned it a few times. Like, ball's coming out so quick, no one's having any pass rush activity, right? Like, that's just kind of the way Bama played that game, was the ball's coming out. What do you want them to do? I think when you're thinking through kind of a scouting profile, different aspects, looks very high level for his position in terms of athletic ability. I think his play speed could use a little bit. Could use a little bit more improvement, but seems to process pretty well. I didn't really note anything where he seemed lost. I actually think he processed at a high level in that Alabama game. We talked about it a number of times. He's just staying square and covering his gap. That's what you want, right? You want good gap integrity, good gap responsibility. So he did that. So I would say, in terms of mental processing, looks pretty high. Functional strength, you need a double team to move that guy. So functional strength is quite high. Some of the things technically that I'd like to see him improve is, I think, more consistent hand usage. I found it too many times, like we kind of saw it in the Clemson game where he was kind of jacking up pads in those bull rushes, and I don't think he did as much in that second game against Bama. So, I've never coached D-line at a high level, so I don't know a whole lot about how you teach that, but that's something that kind of stands out to me. But high level player, should be a good prospect. Just going back to the comments here, Spencer said you don't draft him for what he does in 2022. Feel like it's rare for nose tackles to make a massive impact year one. Yeah, I can see that for sure. I think that's a good point. Something to consider. And again, with a guy with this type of athletic profile at that size, it's going to remind me of a guy like Owe, where the tools that he has are just a lot higher than what you're normally working with when you're developing these guys. But even in terms of, year one impact, looks like a good run defender to me. It seems like a high floor player where I think he's going to be positioned in these draft conversations as boom bust. And I don't really see that. And Owe was the same, right? Because Owe didn't have any sacks in college. And, there was all this stuff around the pass rush, but no one bothered to, identify how well he played the run. So that's kind of something that I see in Davis seems like a high floor player. I feel like I can get him on the field to execute a role for me pretty early, and he's going to do it successfully. So, that's kind of my broader takeaway. I'm going to have to do a little bit more thinking. I'm going to definitely jump into a few more games, but you have any final words on this one, MC, before we sign off?
No, I think you're going to hear about that because, that's what happens, right? Is once the college season is over, now you have all of this time before the actual draft. And so through the season and even going into like the Senior Bowl, some of the All-Star games, so I really should say after the All-Star games, and then, from that period to the combine and the draft, guys start to get picked apart, right? People are like, oh, he's not good at this. Oh, he doesn't do that. Oh, he doesn't do that. And I think that snap thing is the thing that you're going to keep hearing come up. I think people are going to say, do you spend a first-round pick on a guy who plays on first and second down?
Yeah.
Only, or primarily, like Dan said. I think that's a more accurate way of saying it. Not only, because that wouldn't be the only times he would play, but primarily, right? Or if there's a percentage, people say, okay, does he play what, 55, 60% of the snaps? Do you spend that on a first-round pick? Right? You're going to have all of those kinds of conversations. So I think that's an interesting one, just philosophically, because I think it's something you and I and other people have talked about before. There's kind of this ideal of what a first round pick at any position is supposed to look like, and is supposed to be able to provide to your team, right, in that first year. And then if you come across somebody who maybe doesn't fit that archetype, and you're like, okay, well, he's only going to play 60% of the snaps. He's primarily going to play on first and second down. Is that a first round pick? And so it creates those conversations of, well, are you using that generic archetype of what a first round pick looks like? Or are you thinking about a specific fit, in terms of a team? Whether it's the Ravens, I mean, obviously we're talking about the Ravens. That's how we look at it. But you could put yourself in another fan base's shoes and say, okay, for their defense, how could he fit within their defense? And so would that value be the same in Team A's defense versus Team B's defense? So all of that stuff is going to be a part of it. So we'll hear all of those conversations and more as we continue to march on towards the draft.
Absolutely. And actually, speaking of other fan bases, we got a Falcons fan in the chat who said, first time here, good show. Thank you, fellas, but we need Davis on the Falcons. So maybe he's going to be sought after. I mean, I'm assuming you might be down there in Georgia and you want to keep Davis home. So I'd love to see that. And Spencer also adding some SIS info. NFL leader in sacks from the 0-1 tech this year was Jeffrey Simmons with 2.5. So most since 2016 is 5. That's just one of those important things to think about. I guess if the argument is we shouldn't draft Jones in the first round, or he's not a first rounder because he's not going to, get us sacks. I'm not sure that's necessarily the role you're bringing Davis in here to fill. So I'm not sure that's a good measurement of his performance. And I think that's something you and I talk about all the time, MC. It's you're bringing guys in to fill roles. You have diverse roles depending on what your scheme is. And you want high performers doing all those roles, right? So, I mean, that's going to be an important thing with a guy like Jordan Davis is this is a high-performing player. I think you can see where he'd fit. Someone else in the chat asked a question. I want to find it right here. Rexy asked, if you're drafting him, then are you letting Brandon Williams walk? It's a good question because, is there room for Brandon Williams and Jordan Davis? I mean, there was room for Brandon Williams and Michael Pierce, right? So, I mean, they had kind of two of those similar nose tackles. I would imagine if they would be going in this direction, you may not see Williams back with the Ravens, but I don't even know all the cap implications that I'm the last guy that should be talking to you guys about the salary cap. I don't understand it myself. So, but that's the thing for me. I think for me, when I look at the NFL draft, and if you guys follow along, I'm going to be doing a lot of these live drafts. I'm going to talk about this a lot. I'm looking at what is my defense, what is my scheme, what are my roles, what are those roles that currently need to be improved, and I'm trying to find better players to fill them. So, is Jordan Davis worth his first-round pick? He's going to come in here and be a good nose tackle for me. He's going to fill that role. He's going to be stout against the run. I can project how he can push the pocket, help me out on pass situations. I think he's going to improve that role. I think he's got that long-term potential to be an impact player from the inside. You put him with that kind of athleticism beside Justin Madubuike, even if year one, if they bring back Calais Campbell, those three on the inside, that's a lot of athleticism, a lot of length, a lot of size. You can't double team them all, right? So one of those guys getting freed up. I get excited about that, right? That's something where, it may not be sack totals, but I feel really good about what I can do from a pressure perspective with those guys.
Yeah. And if the player is good enough, I mean, really, really good, then, all of the coaches that I consider good coaches, they'll adjust the scheme, right? If that guy's good enough and he does certain things really, really well, you say, hey, maybe I don't necessarily have that role or have that role in, a large volume, but this guy does that freaking amazingly. Like I very rarely see guys who can do that. Then you adjust and you say, okay, I'm gonna find a way to get this guy into my defense and to do those things that he does at a really, really high level, so that we can take advantage of that talent. So it's that balance of, yeah, I've got a scheme and yeah, I've got a structure and I've got roles and I need to, make sure that I'm building and fitting within that. But then also just being able to look at talented players and say, all right, maybe you got to squint a little bit to see the fit. And you're like, you know what, but maybe I need to adjust some things to make this happen. Right. I mean, this is an extreme example, but think about Lamar, right? Yeah. I mean, when they draft Lamar and you're thinking, okay, we got to change, we got to create an offense that really plays to their strengths. Primarily in the run game. We talked about the passing game before. They run a bunch of traditional West Coast offense stuff. But in the run game, you say, hey, we're really going to become a quarterback-driven run game primarily, right? So that was a sea change, right, coming from a guy like Joe Flacco. So if the player's good enough, sometimes you say, you know what, we might have to change things a little bit.
Yeah, and you might even change it over the bye week when you put in that new starting quarterback like they did with Lamar.
When the hip hurts, right? When the hip is injured, you're starting QB and you got to bring in the kid. Yeah, we got to find a way. And you and I talk about this all the time. It's easy to talk about players and talk about what they can't do or what you think they're not good at. Anybody can do. Doesn't take a whole lot of skill. But being able to find what players can do and how they can help a team, because from a coaching perspective, guys have to play. Certain guys have to play, right? Just from a numbers perspective, from a bodies count perspective. I got to get this guy on the field. He's got to play. So I got to find ways to get him ready to play and put him in position to do the things he can do well. Yeah, does he have weaknesses? Sure. There's certain things he's not as good at. Absolutely. But we got to play a game. And so I got to figure out ways to put him in positions to do the things that he can do well. So I'm not saying ignore weaknesses. Whenever I say that, people are like, oh, so you're saying don't pay attention to weaknesses? Not what I'm saying. Obviously, you want to identify and, have thoughts on weaknesses. But I don't think you can let weaknesses rule the day and say, well, he just can't do this. This guy can't play dead in the Western, all of that stuff. So I'm always going to try to look for what guys can do and have my focus be on that, have my primary focus be on what they can do as opposed to what, maybe they're not as good at.
Oh, I love it. And I like it because it goes on beyond just Davis, but talk a little bit about, player evaluation. And I think those conversations are really important. But, that's all we have for you guys today. So that's, 2 games on Jordan Davis, some of our thoughts. Be sure to check us both out on Twitter at Cole Jackson FB, at A Bukhari. I'm sure there's going to be a lot more coming out. But thanks so much, everybody, for stopping in, interacting in the chat. I absolutely love it. I think we're going to be back on Thursday. I think James Ogden's going to show me, and we're going to look at the NC State offensive tackle because James loves this kid and thinks he's a great fit for the Ravens. So we're going to be checking him out. So that's all we have for you guys today. Be good to yourselves. Be good to each other. Peace out, everyone.